What is up, my friends? Welcome back to the channel. This is Kyle Smith, Arizona drummer here, and this is Behind the Kit Season 2, Episode 2. On today's episode, I'm joined by none other than Sarah Hagan, one of the most respected and trusted artist relations and friends in our drumming industry. From leading the artist relations department at Zildjian, to their research and development department, to being a vice president of PASIC, having her own media and consulting company, and now being the head of artist relations at Musora. Yeah, the Musora that brings you Drumeo. Sarah has spent her career advocating and supporting drummers and musicians across our industry to help us reach our potential, stay disciplined and motivated to chase our dreams and capture our goals. Sarah is somebody who has consistently shown up for our community in a big way. If you're in this community, you know her name, you've met her at the conventions. In fact, Sarah is the first person many of us go to see at these conventions, and we're met with a big hug, a big smile, and a, hey, what are you working on? She is a consistent source of support, love, community within our drummer circle, and I think all of us have a unique story of how Sarah has helped shape our career and help us on our journeys. This episode is more than just about talking with somebody in the industry or talking with somebody who has a unique perspective on our industry. This episode is about building relationships, strengthening our community, how the business side of this all works, and the importance of investing in our relationships. And I can confidently speak for my friends by saying that Sarah is a staple in our community and somebody who has done more for us than just about anybody else. So before we even get into this interview, a big thank you to Sarah for all she's done for our community, and I'm so stoked to be able to share this interview with you guys. If you're not familiar with who Sarah is, please make sure hit the links down below, check out her stuff, whether it's her podcast Backstage with Sarah Hagan, what she's doing over with Musora, what she's done with Zildjian in the past. Sarah is truly an irreplaceable part of our community, and we are all so grateful and lucky to have her here. So without further ado, I'll shut up, we'll get into the interview. But again, this one is one you do not want to miss. So let's get into the interview of Behind the Kit Season 2, Episode 2, with the one and only Sarah Hagan. Let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome to the channel. It's Kyle Smith, Arizona drummer here, and we have a very special episode of Behind the Kit. Today, I am joined by none other than Sarah Hagan. Sarah, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are so honored to have the opportunity to speak with you. I mean, I think anybody in the drumming industry knows who you are. We see you at the events. We've spoken with you. We've talked with you. Hopefully, all of us have been fortunate enough to have gotten great advice from you. You know, we were just together at the Music City Drum Show talking about how just over 5 years ago, at my first event back playing drums, you know, you spent the time to sit with me, to talk with me, give me advice, and really encourage me to turn, you know, my second chance at this dream into a real opportunity. And so I just have to say thank you for that. Thank you for joining, and thank you for everything you've done in our industry.
Well, thank you for all of that. I really appreciate it. I was so happy to see you in Nashville and for you to tell me that you took that advice to heart and everything that you've been doing over the past, few years. I'm just really, really happy to see it. I definitely think that life is full of different stages and we all go through it. And so just to see you come back and find your space again in the industry made me so happy.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I remember sitting with you and I'm like, hey, I have 100 subscribers. And I was like on cloud nine, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like not to, I try to not gloat or anything like that, but just passing 25, it'll be 26,000, I think today or tomorrow,
Wow.
So just to see that over the course of that time. And we were talking about this before we hit record, but I've had kind of your voice in the back of my mind of, just because you put the six down, you took a break, doesn't mean you can't do this thing. You can't achieve this goal. And all it takes is consistency, the hard work, and just being yourself. I think that was the biggest thing for me. And we'll get into some questions here, but I'm kind of brown nosing you a little bit. But the piece of it was, while I was at NAMM, it was so influential because it was my first time kind of coming back and being around all of, these people I look up to and these different companies that I want to work with. And, it took a couple of years to get out of that mindset of, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, but of like, I just want endorsements, I just want visibility, I just want to be taken seriously, like that mindset to, no. I just want to be seen as myself. I want to, be comfortable in my own skin, build my own brand. And it was our conversation that really help that because, you know, we'll talk about all kinds of stuff, but at that time you were with Zildjian.
Mhm.
And I was playing Zildjian at the time, and that's how I met you, and we sat down, and you were just so, it was like family almost. You were just so sweet about the advice that you gave me. So again, I won't brown nose too much, but I just want to say thank you because I don't think we'd be here without you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And no, I really, really do appreciate you telling me that it helped you, that our conversation helped you. I think one of my favorite things to do over the years that have been in the industry is just be able to help and guide and, just give some advice here and there where it fits. And I do think that a big part of this industry is the family feeling, right? The drum industry in particular. It's like nothing else. And I said this a few times at the Nashville show. No other industry has this feeling, I don't think. I mean, I feel like there's camaraderie and there are communities and things like that, but there's this aspect of the drum community that's so supportive of each other, and it does feel like family. Like those drum shows feel like family reunions. Seeing everyone again, running into everyone, all the hugs and the laughs and all of that. It's really amazing. And yeah, so one of those things is like being able to take the time to talk to people and give some insight or advice or encouragement, I think has been like the best part of my career for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We talk about this a little bit on the channel and in some of the other interviews, but our community, to your point, is absolutely unique. Like everybody wants to see everybody be successful. Everybody's looking out for each other. You know, as soon as I walked in the door, I'm seeing all my friends and we're hugging and it's like, oh my gosh, we haven't seen each other. And however, some cases it might not even been that long, but oh
Yeah.
my gosh, like Jake Summers, I think him and I did our interview like maybe a couple of days before the drum show, and it's like, oh my gosh, hey, we're hugging each other, and what's great about that too is, again, when I went to NAMM in 2020, I had been so far removed that I just didn't feel like part of the community, and so I was kind of like, where do I fit in? And I was a little bit nervous to talk to people, and just all of us go through that. And then
Yeah.
I went to NAMM this year, and then of course this show, and again it's polar opposite. I think it's just one of those things where everybody is so welcoming, everybody is so loving, but I think that kind of is a really good segue into the first question, which is, I think, going back to the beginning of your career and understanding, like, how did your journey start getting into our industry, getting into music, getting into all that stuff? Because I think that...
Thank you so much. Well, I feel like my entrance into the industry probably is reflected in the way that I've carried myself throughout my time in the industry, because I did have mentorship. I did have people really kind of looking out for me and giving me opportunities, and taking a chance on me, really, I would say, which is an amazing thing to have. And so that's why I've always kind of tried to pay it forward and make sure that I am paying attention to everyone who's coming up and, where they might need a little bit of like, a hand, because it really is, again, like it's about the community. It's about who it's about the friends that you make. And I think when we talked that day at NAMM, if I remember correctly, I did say something about like being yourself, right? And then like talking to people in the industry, just kind of making those connections wherever you can, like you were doing with me that day. I was like, this is exactly right. It's the exact right thing to do, because the more people and the more people have, your kind of like face in mind, or your personality or your history in mind when they're looking for somebody for something. It's just like getting a gig, right? The reputation precedes you always. So yeah, I started out, I started playing music as a kid. I wanted to play drums when I was really little. Begged my parents, like any kid does. I feel like I always say this, but there's like a barrier to entry to being a drummer, because you have to really convince your parents a lot of the time. Of course, when you're a musician and you have kids, it's a different thing, because you're like, yes, please, like make all the noise you want, but it is a little bit of a tough thing to be like, I want this really loud, large instrument that's expensive, and I'm gonna make noise all over the house. But my parents were super supportive. They always played music, had music going in the house, and encouraged me to start with lessons. I started with snare drum lessons when I was 10, and took years of snare drum lessons, which is kind of like a blessing and a curse, I feel. I really, I really I loved reading music. I loved rudiments and sticking and, dynamics and all of that. And I was in like the marching band and the concert band in school, which I loved. It was a great experience. But I struggled a little bit when it came to like playing anything that had improvisation in it, because I really loved the music. I wanted to read the music, and I was just like, wait a minute, I have like 8 measures of improv. What? What do I do now? But it was a really it was a great experience. It gave me a really great base to be able to go on and do other things. And then, you learn how to improvise. You have great other musicians in your life. My band director was fantastic. He was a jazz musician himself, and really taught me about jazz music and improv and all of that. So I loved that experience. And then in high school, the story about getting into the industry in high school, I worked at a cafe in Norwell, Massachusetts, which is where Zildjian is located. And the Zildjian employees would come in all the time to get coffee. And I just made friends with them. I just talked with them and got to know them. And, I knew their coffee orders, and we would just chat. And I was kind of like this little girl who played drums, I guess, who made coffee. But I was friendly, and just chatted with them and got to know their kids when they would bring them in on the weekend for coffee. And Armin Zildjian came in a few times, and I've told this story a few times, but I was very nervous. I was very, very like, oh my gosh, it's Armin Zildjian. And I knew his face from like the Z Time magazines. And my last day of work before I went to college, he came in, and my boss at the time was like, you have to talk to him. You have to say hello. And so he introduced me to Armand, and Armand was the kindest, sweetest human being. He just stood there with me and chatted and asked me about what kind of music I listen to, what kind of music I like to play, what cymbals I like, which brands, why. Like he cared. He was curious about me, and he cared about my feedback. And it was just so nice to be seen, like that. And he asked if I would be there the next day, and I said, no, I'm actually going to college. This is my last day of work. So he said, okay, I'll be back. I have meetings, but I'll be back. And he did. He came back at the very end of the day, and he brought me a girl style t-shirt, which I didn't even know Zildjian made at the time, because it was kind of like before you would have anything that was like styled for girls in the drum world. And a pair of sticks, and then a cymbal that he signed to Sarah, Armin Zildjian, which is like right behind my head right here, framed. That affected me, like that interaction affected me through my entire life, like in all ways. It was like one of those things that I would think back on years later when I'm sitting at Zildjian and kind of carrying on his AR, his artist relations legacy, I guess, and just thinking about like, how would he handle this situation, or am I doing him justice, that kind of thing. And so any opportunity to just really listen when someone talked, or care, like truly care about what they thought about things. And I wasn't anybody to him, so it really made an impression on me. Like everyone is someone, everyone is something to give. And that interaction, like he could never have known that someday I would be working for his company. But he set me on that path, so it was great. And then just a quick aside about how I actually started working for the company. I was in college in my senior year. I was going to law school after college, and I had done a double major in English and criminal justice. I had one last course to take, and it was an internship for my English degree. And the internships that were offered were like in editing and things like that. And I was like, how am I going to survive this? Like, it sounds really uninteresting. But I asked my advisor if I can get an interesting internship that has something to do with English, would it count? And she said, well, sure, try. Why don't you try? So I called John DeChristopher, who was working at Zildjian, who would come in to get coffee all the time. And he actually invited me to a few drum clinics when I was in high school, which was amazing. And he said, oh, we're actually interviewing for an intern. Why don't you come in and interview? So I did. I got the internship. I loved, loved, loved being there. Immediately, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I did not go to law school. And it was just, yeah, I just really, like, I worked my way up through the artist relations department. And I absolutely loved my time there. I was there for 16 years. It was awesome.
Wow. It's funny because I'll say this. I am an emotional guy in general. This is what it is. But I'm hearing the story and I'm starting to, tear up a little bit because I'm like, wow, like what a cool story. And like, you are living proof though of one, the experience with Armin carrying through, because again, our interaction was the same thing. I'm just this nobody, kid at Disneyland sitting there talking with you and you're giving me, the time of day, but then two, sitting there saying, hey, this is what you need to be doing. These are things you need to be focusing on. This is how you can continue to grow. And I'm like, yes, so like right there is living proof. But then secondly, you made the connections, but not, it's a kind of an interesting segue. It's not something I had listed as a question, but I think it's important to talk about, which is like the purpose of networking. I think a lot of times when, especially younger drummers, they hear the word networking, it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, just go talk to people? Like, especially for any introverts out there, it's like, ugh, or like, what do I talk to them about? Or what do I do? How do I make an impression? And it's like, when you realize that like, you're not networking to get a gig, that shouldn't be in your mind. You're networking to build true connections, true relationships, friends, and it doesn't matter if it's the coffee order of these folks or if it's just talking with somebody about their artist destiny or whatever it is. It's about just being yourself and building connections with others, and look at where it can lead. It should never be with what you can get in mind. It should be the fact that I'm getting a friendship out of this, and maybe one day it'll lead to something, but like, it's the same thing when, maybe you go to a bar and you make a new friend. You're not thinking about, what can I get from this person? Or hopefully not. You should be thinking of...
I think some people are, but yeah, but hopefully not. Yeah.
Exactly. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I think that networking, especially in the music industry, I mean, in all industries, it's important, but like, less so, I think, in some spaces. In our industry, it's so important. And I totally understand the whole like, but I'm an introvert and I don't necessarily love talking to people or introducing myself or that kind of a thing. I get that. I was the shy kid. I was absolutely shy. One of the reasons I wanted to play drums was because it felt safe. Like you can make noise, but you're like behind something that's like almost a barrier. The thought of being a front person out on stage holding a microphone was terrifying to me. So I have to say that one of the things I've learned over the years is that there are so many like scary things out there, right? Like, there are terrifying things out there if you think about it, but the only way to feel better about it or to feel more confident about it is to literally force yourself to do it, as uncomfortable as it is. One of my things was public speaking, like introducing people, just putting myself out there was really, really scary to me. And what I did was force myself to take every opportunity that came my way to do public speaking. And it was really hard, but then you get to the point where you're like, okay, I survived that and it wasn't terrible and it went okay. And sometimes they're better than others, right? Sometimes I'm like, oh, that wasn't the best. Like, I could have done a little better. But you really recognize the fact that you are capable. And I think that's really, really important. So yes, it's hard. It's hard sometimes. I love people. Like that's something, even though I was kind of a shy kid, I was very observant. Like I was always watching and understanding and listening and like, just kind of like getting a good feel of the sociology of my surroundings. And so and it still interests me to this day. Like documentary films are my favorite. I just love understanding like someone's life, what they went through, what they survived, how things affected them. So I think, I kind of forced myself a little bit when I was younger and took all of the opportunities to introduce myself like you did at the NAM booth that day. And in this industry it is super important. But the other part is like one thing to remember, and I think that I want to say it was Peter Erskine who said this, but that when you're in an audition, everyone is actually rooting for you. Like you're not, and I say audition, but this is kind of just life in general. Like the people around you, like this is something to keep in mind when you're like, oh my gosh, I want to say something to that person. I'm not sure. Like, how do I do it? How do I introduce myself? Are they going to be like, oh, who is this person talking to me? In general, people are rooting for you. Like they want to help, they want to support, they want to encourage. And so, it was just in the audition context that Peter was saying that when you're auditioning for something, remember that the judges want you to do great. They're not sitting there hoping you fail, right? They're wanting you to do great. So just feel that energy and know that like whatever you do, you did it. Like it was yours. Own it. And I think about that sometimes too. I think that's one thing that is a little bit helpful to think about. Like the person on the other side of the interaction isn't waiting for you to like stumble over your words or like say the wrong thing. They really want you to succeed in the conversation even. And in the industry that we are in, we all have this really common this thing in common, right? Music and drumming and the love of that. And so the support is definitely there, even if you feel like you have a hard time talking to people. Find someone who has your similar feel and walk around a trade show with that person so that you can be supportive of each other and help introduce each other to people. I think that's something that's helpful too. So, yeah, there are ways to get around it for sure.
Absolutely. And I mean, if it's not obvious, I'm an extreme extrovert. I love talking to people. I'm like, I just get energy. I love it. But
Yes.
I am also shy in the sense of, when I come out and I'm like, I don't know anyone. And I'm like, okay, where do you start? And I've been fortunate. I'm sure you would agree with this, but I've been fortunate when I did put the sticks down professionally for that time. I went into the corporate world and I learned how to network and I learned how to, connect and how to kind of force yourself out of your comfort zone. And whenever people hear that, it sounds kind of cliche or taboo of like, get out of your comfort zone. But really, the most growth you'll ever experience in your life is when you're uncomfortable because you've taken that step and now you're learning and you're almost like filling out the blind spots or gaps in your understanding of yourself of like what am I capable of and what can I do and I think that being uncomfortable in situations like that where you have this ability to come out on the other side as a stronger, better, more developed version of yourself, it's like, oh my gosh, what? And then you get to throw drums into the mix of like, wait a minute, I also get to become friends with these people and hang, whatever it is. But the way you said it is perfect of like, you have to just take the leap. You have to push yourself. And I think a lot of things we talk about on this channel is the hard work that goes into chasing your dream.
Yeah.
But also the discipline of like,
Yeah.
you're standing there, you have a path. I can continue to watch them from afar and I do agree with you. There is value in that of like understanding the landscape. You don't want to just jump up when somebody's talking to someone else, or you can again take the leap and just go up there and say, hey, I am so and so, and whether I'm a fan or whatever the case is, and just to have a conversation. I had a chance to, like I said, audition for Daughtry. Great experience, great guys, and I mean everybody in that group is just awesome. But I learned a lot in the experience. And to your point, they're not going to engage you to audition to see if you suck at the drums. They're going to engage you to audition because they want to find the right drummer. They want to find somebody to join their band. And there were a few things that I could have done differently that I think have edged that out a little bit better. But, at no point during that process was like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't do this because what if I mess up? It was all about, I should do this even if I mess up because I will learn from it. And then the next audition I get, I'll be better. And I think that, one of the things I lead with, and I promise I'll stop talking, give you a chance to talk, but one of the things I lead with is professionalism, professionalism, maturity, and grace. Those are like my three kind of pillars. Obviously, you want to lead with professionalism, but have the maturity to understand that not every gig is going to be your gig, not every situation is going to be yours, and then have the grace to learn and not beat yourself up too much when those things happen. And so I'm curious, you've worked closely with some of the biggest drummers in the world. Not just worked with, but you have great relationships with them. And I'm curious, like, as you're interacting with them, as you're learning from them, what are some of the consistent things that you've learned that make the greats great and help them grow when it comes to these types of situations where they're putting themselves out there and again, learning from these opportunities?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think that, those three tenets that you mentioned are really, really important. And even, one of the things I think is the most important thing is that, like, the drummers that we consider the very top, right? The best of the best. Those guys and girls they all have the same kind of like passion for music, right? So there's a passion there that drives them. And you can't get to that level where you breathe and you live music, right? And it's like everything about you. You can't really get there, I don't think, unless you have that like internal drive, right? And it just to push you, the passion to play music. And that's really important. And the other thing is that when you talk to them, they're always learning. They always feel like there's space for growth, and there's something that they haven't learned yet. And we think of them as like the masters, right? But they don't think of themselves that way. They're like, I have so much more to learn, right? There's so much, and I think that's that drive that keeps them going, right? And we see musicians like they play music until they are literally like done with life, right? So I feel like it's really the only industry that we see that. We don't see, a 95-year-old dentist, it's like it's just, but it's that passion, right? It's like they don't want to stop. They don't want to retire. There's more to give. There's more that they have inside of them that they want to put out there. They love it, right? And sure, some people tour because they need to, but most musicians are making music and playing music because they have to. It's just in them and they have to do it. And I think there's something really beautiful about that. Whenever new music comes out, I'm always like, ooh, what's driving them right now, right? Like what can I hear in that music that signifies like a place in life that they're at, or a stage or something like that. And sometimes it's really apparent. I feel like sometimes, you can hear some sadness or some anger or a really happy time. And sometimes it is more subtle, but yeah, I think like when we think about the top musicians, it's really the drive. It's the hard work. And I think it was Pink, I'm pretty sure, who said something like, the only difference between me and someone who wanted to be in my position and isn't here is that I just kept going. Like I kept pushing. I kept trying. Every time I fell down, I would get back up and keep moving. And one of my things that I always say is just keep moving forward. Just keep pushing forward. And maybe you feel like you're stuck for a year, 5 years. Maybe it's a week where you feel like you're stuck until you have a forward movement. But as long as you're pushing, as long as you're, trying to move forward and trying to advance yourself, you're growing, you're learning something. And even when you don't get a gig that you want, or the audition doesn't go the way that you wanted it to, it's a learning experience. And that's one thing that sets really successful musicians apart, is that they take it for that, right? Like, okay, that wasn't meant for me right now, but what did I get from it? Like, what was the takeaway? What connections did I make during that experience that down the line maybe will prove to be, something really great in my life or in my career? The other thing is, you mentioned a few times about making connections and not thinking of it as like a benefit, and I think that's really important too, because the authentic connections and the authentic friendships and the long lasting connections are not built on like what you can give someone or what they can give you, but like an actual like real care for someone else as a human. And I think that's what I value most about the musicians and all the people that I've met along the way in my career, is that our connection is genuine. And sure, I can call them and say, hey, I have this opportunity, or I have this request or something like that. But in reality, I really care about them as a person and their lives and their children and how they're doing today, like that kind of a thing. I think that's really important.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that, drums just happen to be the thing we have in common, or music. We'll just say that, because maybe not everybody plays drums, but
Yeah.
that's just the thing that brought us together. But it's not that's not the reason we're together, and I think that, for younger drummers, speaking for myself, even a couple of years ago, like you don't fully grasp that until you start to build them, and you're like, oh my gosh, some of my best friends now are people I never would have thought I would talk to, but it's
Yeah.
not because we
Yeah.
play drums. Like, that's just what brought us together,
Mhm.
and there's something you said in there that I really enjoyed, which was, music kind of is like a time capsule for your emotional state at whatever time, and I think that you said that drums are something that made you feel safe, and I could not agree with that more. Like, again, I have no issue talking, but this is where I feel the safest. Back here is where I feel like I am truly expressing myself. We all speak this language. We have different dialects, different accents of drumming, but we all speak the language, and we all can communicate in this way that nobody else can really understand. And, when you talk about the 95-year-old dentist not really existing, something that Brendan Buckley says was, it's kind of like an affliction. We're all sick. We all are obsessed with this instrument. We're all
Right.
obsessed with music.
Yeah.
And we all share in this affliction, but the cure is, again, our community. And something else he said that I think tied into what you mentioned is a black belt, because he's into, I think, jiu-jitsu, but a black belt is just a white belt who didn't stop. And it's the same kind of concept of what makes the most successful people reach their dreams is the fact that they didn't give up on themselves. They stayed disciplined, because motivation's going to come and go, and you can never expect yourself to be fully motivated, but also you never know when that thing is that page is going to turn for you. Just speaking for myself, I've been doing this since I've come back. It's been about 5.5 years. And between years 1 and 4, it was, I think 100 subscribers to 2,000 subscribers. So really slow burn. But again, posting twice a week, every week, posting every day, just push. And this year, from 2,000, now we're almost to 30,000. And it's only been 6 months. And it's because that thing finally caught. And I just didn't quit. It's post twice a week on YouTube and every day on social media, consistently for 6 years. And it just takes work, and it sucks sometimes, but it's, we're passionate, we're driven, and it never feels like work because of that. Because we're talked about how drums bring us together, but the connection comes from more than just that. You've obviously seen drummers at every level of their career. Somebody who's just starting, maybe even a young kid who's getting his first cymbals, all the way up to, again, the greats. When you're seeing any drummer, what is it about them that stands out to you? Not just musically, but even as you're thinking about, like, ooh, this would be somebody who, with the A&R hat on, that I want to work with as a brand partner, or even just somebody I want to build a connection with. Like, what are some of those things that stand out to you immediately where you're like, ooh, this is somebody I need to check out?
I would say, first of all, with all of the changing parameters, I think, in artist relations and endorsement deals, and the years it's just changed so much over the years, from how many records did you sell, to like how many followers do you have on social media, so with all that being said, and the changes that have occurred, the most important thing is like the actual playing level, right? Like playing, and it's not that everyone has to be like super super high level amazing, polyrhythms, it's not like it's not like that. It's more like the feel, right? Is how does this person play, and can you see them doing this 20 years from now, or is this something that maybe they're just going to do for a few years, and then until the band isn't maybe relevant in the times anymore. And both of those things are valid. There are situations where you're like, wow, this band is super hot right now, and maybe it'll be like a 3-year run, but it would be good for a brand to get on board for now, because that it doesn't have to be 35-year 40-year endorsement situation anymore. But for me, I always like look at how do they play. Do they have a playing level that will carry them through? Would they be a great clinician for a brand? How do they speak about the product? Could we do some kind of promotion with them? Would they rep a new product, kind of a thing? I always talk about the mutually beneficial relationship, right, between an artist and a company. It's really important for a company to recognize that, like, okay, it's not really, and the artist to recognize it's not really about like the free product anymore, the discounted product, because there's so many companies out there. There's so many options. For me, it's really about like this relationship between the artist and the company, and how will we work to promote each other. And then also like really believing in the product that you play is incredibly important. Just loving the sound that you're getting, what the instrument is doing for your music, how it's contributing to the music. I think we as drummers really hear that sound in the music when we're hearing it. I'll give you an example of this, where Pearl Jam went on tour one year, and Matt Cameron was playing with Soundgarden at the time, and he was out on tour with Soundgarden, and they came through Boston with Matt Chamberlain, who is an amazing drummer. I absolutely love his playing. Just have so much respect for him. That was the craziest thing, because I grew up hearing the Zildjian cymbals in the music, and like bright, Matt playing the A customs and the A's, and so hearing Matt Chamberlain play the same music, but he was playing Istanbul Agop, I think he had, and so the difference in the sound, to me, I'm standing in the audience going like, oh my goodness, what is happening? And also recognizing that nobody around me is having that experience, right? Because they are having no idea. Like, he's playing the music perfectly, and it sounds beautiful, and he's Matt, so he's doing, just an incredible job at it. But it's interesting because like those things are so they're so like they're just a teeny piece of it. But I think as drummers, like, we hear that kind of thing. So anyway, the sound of the product, the mutually beneficial relationship as far as being able to really kind of promote each other, especially now that everything is about promotion, and the relationship. I will always go back to the relationship between the artist and the company, the artist and the people at the company, is so incredibly important, because you have to have that, trust that you can call, and that person is going to know what you need, understand your sound or your gear needs, and then be able to like move on it, right? As an AR person, I feel like a lot of your job is like troubleshooting, so and so's in such and such a state, and something just broke, or they need something pretty much immediately, and you have to really kind of troubleshoot that situation to figure it out. So so there are those aspects, I guess I would say, that, and then again about the changing landscape of the parameters as far as endorsement goes. It's just so different. And there's so many more options. You have, influencer artists now, and coming up in the last, especially 10 years or so, that are incredibly important to brands. It's really important. I use the beauty industry as an example a lot, but I think it's relevant. Um, the beauty industry has grown into this billions and billions of dollar industry. It's just incredible. And how did they do that? They did it through online influencers, basically. And I've become, I see a lot of like Instagram ads for this, and that, and make your face look like this, or like plump your lips or whatever. Like, it's so, you see the same people sometimes promoting, like, they're promoting, like, I don't know, neck cream, and they're also like in another ad promoting like protein coffee or whatever, and you're just like, oh, it's really, in that case, a little bit inauthentic, I think. But in our industry, I think we can learn a lot from that because it works. It sells product, right? And at the end of the day, like, the companies, their goal is to sell product. And but I think we can do it more authentically, and I think our industry does it more authentically, just naturally.
I agree with that, and it's funny. So I'm so happy you went into this endorsement conversation because
I
it's
went a
something.
little, yeah.
No, it's good though because it was something that I think that you have a unique perspective. That again, drummers who want to learn more about that process and kind of what it really means and where the industry has changed and where it's going. It's so important because when I first, like I mentioned, when I first came back, what I thought was endorsements equal legitimacy. That was like where my head was at.
Right.
And to a degree, there's some truth to that because obviously if you have them, there's a reason you have it. There's a skill there, but my head went that way. So I partnered with a couple companies that I didn't really believe in, and just because I could, and quickly, as you can imagine, parted ways and moved back to my voice. And the point to all of this is, it's okay to try other things. It's okay to mix and match. It's okay to to switch from one company to another, to find your voice, to invest the time. Not to get too personal, but I got divorced a couple of years ago. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and in that experience, you kind of are forced to stop and learn about yourself, and really hopefully learn about yourself, and to invest a little bit of time of like, well, what makes me tick, and who am I as an individual? And the same thing is true about the instrument. There's nothing more. Now, again, as a drummer, you can play anything and be happy, but there's something very, I'm going to use the word intimate, maybe it's the wrong word, but intimate. And once you kind of find that voice that resonates with you and resonates with your soul, and to me, that's the companies that you should work with. And not because you should go pursue an endorsement for the sake of getting one. Yeah. You should naturally endorse their products, whether they know who you are or not. If that's going to be the thing that attracts brands to you, is like, oh my God, this person truly is passionate about our products. They truly are engaged in our social or engaged with our artist or whatever the case is. But what's important, I think, for the listeners to take away is getting an endorsement for the sake of an endorsement is not going to be the benefit you think it is. Finding the right partner that matches the sound that you need, the voice that you have, but also that from a relationships perspective, that all that stuff is so crucial, and it's so key to, because again, everybody makes great gear. You'll find an option for you anywhere. It's about where do you resonate the most. And then you said something else there too, really quickly, because you throw in the Sweetwaters of the affiliate programs, or Amazon, the affiliate programs. You kind of take it a step further out of just the manufacturers. And what I think can set you apart as a drummer is, I am more than just a drummer. Like, again, obviously the drums should speak for themselves. You should have the skill set that's a given. You shouldn't really even be considering endorsement if you can't play the instrument. But it's, can you speak coherently? Can you not even just influence folks, but just, can you share your passion in a way that's going to resonate with other people, and they're going to understand that, okay, this person truly, excuse my language, but gives a shit about what they're talking about. So again, I'll pause there, but I just want to kind of get your thoughts on all of that. I know I just threw a lot out there, but I'm just curious.
That's okay. I think that one of the things that made my representation of Zildjian authentic was I'm also a fan, right? I'm also a consumer. Like, I grew up playing Zildjian cymbals, loving the sound, loving the brand, and then was just really grateful for my time there through the whole time. Like, there was never a time that I pulled into the parking lot in the morning, like, oh, another day of work. It was never, ever, ever that for me. Even if I knew that I had some hard projects um, to work on, or I was going to have a meeting that day that maybe I wasn't like super stoked about. It was every day I was grateful. I pulled into the parking lot, seeing the sign, thinking like, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be here. And I think that resonated with the artist. I'm a drummer. I know the product. I understand the language. And like, so we already have those things established, right? And then when choosing cymbal sounds, I get it when someone tells me they want something, that they can ride but also crash, but has a great bell, but has some stick definition, but can work for all these different things, the unicorn ride cymbal. But yeah, I really feel like there's a process to finding your sound, and sometimes it hits you early in your career, and sometimes it's later, and sometimes it changes, and that's okay, right? Like, things happen, things change. You may spend your whole life loving country music, and that's your passion, and you play country music. And then you have this opportunity to take a gig in a different genre of music, and you need something that sounds different for that music. That's okay, right? Like, I think there's a little bit of a stigma, like you were saying, about like jumping. And I'm not saying like just, endorse and put your heart and soul behind all of these different companies inauthentically. But I'm saying, like, if you need a product for a specific reason, or your sound has changed, that happens. And sometimes it's just, maturity in the music, and sometimes it's um, hearing change. Like, and that's a legit situation. Like, sometimes you may actually like even some hearing loss, which causes you to need a different tone in your sound. That is something that is a thing. So I think that it's important to listen to what is going on, like what the sound is in your head, and make sure that you're having that, because no one wants to like play an instrument and have the sound not resonate with them. That's not fun. But when it comes to being like a really avid spokesperson for a company, I think you should really only put yourself in that position when you're sure that like this is your thing. And not to say that might change years down the line, but it's not something that's going to change in a year or 2 years or whatever. And you can spend some time promoting that product from your heart. You can promote them legitimately, and that is like the most important thing, I think.
I think so too, and I think it goes back to some of that stuff we were talking about, of having an open mind, being willing to learn about yourself, because again, everybody makes great gear. I mean, we're at a point where all of us drummers are very fortunate. You can pretty much find, high quality gear you can take on the road or put in your studio with any company within reason, but it should just, before you almost become like an ambassador of that company, officially or not, make sure that that's something you truly believe in. And it's okay, to your point, if it changes, of course. I joke about this. My first kind of pro run, if you want to call it that, it was death metal, like just crazy double bass and fast stuff. But I was also 20, 21 when I put the sticks down. And now coming back, it's like I still do the metal stuff because it's fun, of course. Playing metal drums is fun for, because you get to play fast. But where I resonate most right now is rock, country, hip hop, everything else. Like, that's really what gets me excited. And, and those are most of the gigs I'm doing now. And being open to it, and I think finding the beauty in all of it is what comes with maturity, to your point, but also I think comes with just keeping an open mind.
Yeah.
There's not one style of music. There's not one brand of gear, or they're all tools that we can use to craft something.
Yes.
And again, we're all just trying to express ourselves at the end of the day. Like that's, but I'm just so happy you brought this up, because I do think that endorsements in general, that's, as I've kind of come back to this, has been this, there's been a stigma around them of like they're absolutely necessary and it doesn't really matter what they are. It's like, get all that out of your head. If you want to be a professional, just get good at your instrument, do the work, and if you're passionate, all that stuff will come. Like you just have to just focus on the other stuff first. And even still, to your point, you know, a lot of, I think folks think endorsements are free gear, or severely discounted gear. It's like, oh, I can get a whole set of cymbals. It's like, if you're playing with the biggest acts in the world, maybe, but the benefit of endorsement, and I always joke about this, where I'm like, I joke with Sabian, where I'm like, Sabian, I'll pay you. Like, you don't have to don't give me anything. I'll just keep buying. Like, you know, because I don't care, right? Like, that's not what it's about. It's, you know, I'm going to buy their cymbals whether or not we're partners. Right. And so I am curious though, you know, it could be, because something that I think that you have a unique experience with, not just the artist piece of it, but even like R&D of like going in and like creating things from scratch of like, I want to find a sound, or I want to create this expressive tool that doesn't exist today. You know, is there a piece of gear or innovation that comes to mind that either you were involved with, or maybe you were just kind of privy to, that's out in the marketplace today that you're just super proud of like, I cannot believe I was a part of this, or got to kind of push this out into the marketplace, anything like that that just comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, I loved being part of the R&D team and the sound team, as we called it, at Zildjian. One of the best parts for me was being able to have so many conversations with artists about sound needs, and then bring it back, you know, to the team and say, this is what I'm hearing is needed, is necessary. You know, I spent, there's probably a good like 7 years, maybe 8 years even, of time where most of my days were spent in the vault picking cymbals with artists, and, you know, spending time with them and talking sound and all of that. So like the feedback was always, there was always a trend to it. You know, there would always be like, okay, well, a lot of the jazz players are coming in and they're asking for like this specific thing, or this specific sound, or maybe this size, or, you know, many of them want rivets in a cymbal, or that kind of a thing. And one of the things that I was noticing for years in like the kind of like 20, I would say 2013, 14, 15, like time frame was, so many artists asking for the special dry sound, the K Custom special dries. That was just like requested over and over again. Do you have any left of the old ones? But we kind of like the old ones, but we really want it to sound more like this, that kind of thing. So that project, I think, was probably the cymbal line that I was most involved with, as far as determining the sizes and the sounds and what the effect cymbal should look like. And you know, the China cymbal, where I was like, please put holes in it. Please, we have to put holes in the China cymbal. So like things like that, that was like one of the most rewarding parts of the job, I think, because seeing a hole in, oh, hang on one second. So sorry. Whoa, we got a little phone call. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine.
Seeing seeing a hole, like a sound need, right? Like there's a void there that we could fill, and then being able to like work with the team on making a product and seeing it launch and be super successful and like well received, and the artists be so happy. That project in particular probably resonates with me as like one of the things that I still like. Every time I see one of those cymbals, or I see someone playing one, I'm just like, yay, you know, like it makes me so happy. All the cymbals that, you know, that I was involved with on the R&D team, I feel like that, just because, you know, when do you get a chance to like affect the sound of music, really? Like, you know, I hear those cymbals on recordings and I'm just like, that is super cool. That makes me super happy. Yeah. So that was amazing. I think, and I just want to go back to like the endorsement thing, like also product development being intertwined when you are thinking about applying for an endorsement. And I think this is something important. Um, think about what you have to offer the company, not just what the company has to offer you. So you know what you want from the company, right? But the companies are really looking for artists who, of course, like have something to give, right? So you you have to like put yourself out there in a way where you're like, hey, I can do these things, or these are the things that I have to offer, or that I'm really good at, or something like that. And sometimes it is like product feedback, and sometimes it's I'm on this, I'm on tour for the next year with this great band. And then other times it's I'm a good public speaker, or I'm involved with these organizations that I could represent your company to, So I just think it's like it's important to represent yourself as well-rounded as possible, and as having as much to give. Like put that stuff forward first, instead of like, like the companies, they have a lot of applications to read or a lot of emails to read, right? So just put yourself out there, right at the beginning, with what you are bringing to the table. And put your best face forward, I guess, maybe. Just knowing that the companies are really looking for partners in their artists at this point. It's so different. There's not a lot of signing going on. It's not like the old days. There's not a lot of free product being sent out. So how do you put yourself forward as a partner to the companies?
Oh my gosh. Yes. And I think that goes back to the professionalism of like, what do you, it's a business. Like you're a business as a brand, if that's the path you've gone down as a drummer. I know we're getting a little close on time. I don't know if you can go a little over, if that's all right.
I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm totally
Okay.
fine.
To your point, like the path that some of us go down, like I wanted to create a brand for myself of like Arizona Drummer is the brand. I play drums, but as a brand, there's an identity there that you can kind of lead with and share. I think of like Brian Fraser Moore, who's a good friend of mine. BFM World was like kind of the inspiration for that. But even still, as a drummer, whether you have a brand or not, like you are a brand. Your reputation is your brand. And if there's not, again, to your point, endorsements need to be mutually beneficial. These are businesses. It's a business-to-business relationship regardless of the fact that you're an individual. And so
Right.
what are you bringing to that transaction, if you will? And I love that you said that because it goes back to auditions, it goes back to endorsement deals, it goes back to networking. It's like, yes, obviously there's going to be some benefit for everybody in those situations, but it's like what, from like a total package perspective, what sets you apart from everybody else? Again, nobody should be submitting an application for any of that stuff if you can't play. So take all that out of the way. Everybody can play. Great. What is it about you that can be a benefit? And a lot of things that, something I learned as I've gotten more familiar with the business, just the business side of our industry, which I think is crucial to learn. So drummers, if you're listening, get as familiar as you can with the business side of things, because one, that helps a lot when it comes to accepting the bad news when you get it. But then two, it just gives you a different perspective of looking at things much more professionally. And to that point, brands have budgets. They can't sign everybody, and if they're going to use up some of that budget, they need to know that there's a return on that investment of like, what is going to happen if I partner with this person? And it is a risk, every time it's a risk. Unless you're Travis Barker, where you're the biggest drummer in the world, it's a risk to kind of, do that. And so you have to be able to, here's my business coming out, but the value proposition needs to be there. And so these companies, doesn't matter how big you are, Zildjian being the biggest cymbal company in the world, I would argue DW or Pearl probably the biggest drum company in the world, right? You can list all these names everybody knows. They're going to get, God, I would have to guess minimally hundreds, if not thousands of applications every month. I would guess somewhere in that ballpark. And so and all of these, maybe not all of them, but let's just say 50% of those drummers are killing it. Just true, exceptional players. Okay, well, what are you going to do? How are you
Right.
going to
What
help?
sets you apart? Right.
Exactly. And you have to be the whole package. And the whole package is going to look different from opportunity to opportunity.
Right.
But there has to be something there. Putting yourself out there and getting the no's, and I'll give you just one more quick example. I'm not going to talk about the company, but I had a company I reached out to, really looking to do like not an endorsement, but a partnership. Like, hey, I already use your products. Maybe we can put something out together, kind of thing. Didn't work out at the time, but right after that, I responded with, I really appreciate the response. Can you give me any feedback, guidance, or information on what I can be doing to improve myself, my brand, my channel, that we can potentially work together sometime down the line? And I think that's another thing where it's like, just because you got to know, the no is an opportunity in itself, to learn
Yes.
and grow. So,
Yeah. Be open to feedback, right?
exactly. And it's hard, I think, especially for younger folks, and maybe not even just younger folks, but just those who don't have that professional awareness, to understand that this is a risk for the business, whether you're a huge touring artist or you're somebody in their basement. It's a risk that every time. And now, to your point, God, this is a whole different tangent we can go down. I promise I won't take us, because it'll take a whole other hour. But then there's like the concern of like, well, if I partner with you, you're an exceptional drummer. Right now you're doing great, but 3 years down the line, you say something controversial, or you really muddy up your brand. I don't want to have there's just so many different risks, not just financial, out there with social media.
Yeah, no, I would say that's a big part of it now. Everyone knows everything. Everything is on video now. It's like you can't you can't hide from anything. And not that anyone should be hiding, but you know what I mean? It's like it's all out there. And people, the cancel culture and all that stuff, it's in a lot of ways, and I think it's too much. It's too much. Like, I have a almost 13-year-old daughter, and she'll tell me, "Oh no, that person's been canceled," and I'll say, "Well, why? What happened?" "Well, they're perceived as this or whatever," and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, this is not." Obviously there are serious things that should come to light, and then there's just this other thing where kids will like grasp onto one little tiny thing, and it blows up. And so I think you're right, that is a factor. And one of the things that I would always do when considering someone for an endorsement is kind of assess their attitude in a lot of ways. It's really important, because you don't want you to get yourself into a situation with someone who represents the company in a bad light, and sometimes that can just be through attitude, through a bad attitude, through, having a history of being thrown off gigs for attitude or whatever. It's one of those things, I think, that it's always been a factor, but now it's even more present. And then the fact that, like, the reputation will follow you through your career. So it's just that much more important to carry yourself with integrity and, keep yourself in check in all ways, I think. But it is really important. You're in the public eye. Social media is very unforgiving in a lot of ways. And then on the flip side of that, I just do want to say that, the whole thing about social media, where everybody can comment on everything, I think the other thing to keep in mind if you're thinking about a career in the music industry is just develop that thick skin, as far as knowing who you are. If you are living your life with integrity, and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, then whatever anyone is commenting out there about how, his snare should be tighter, or snare's too tight or whatever, like, everyone has their opinions on everything. They're going to give it. Let it roll off your back. It is okay to delete comments. That's another thing. I've done my fair share of comment deleting of just completely inappropriate stuff. That's okay. It's your social media. You police it as you feel free. But yeah, definitely, like, know who you are, push forward no matter what, always pushing forward. It's okay if you get stuck in a time period where you don't feel like you're making any progress, it's just a phase. You'll get out of it as long as you have that drive, and you work hard. And, again, that's what separates, I think, the people who make it, to a certain point, which again, you're never going to feel like you're there, because that's part of life. That's part of the learning process. That's part of growing. So remind yourself that there's never a point where you're going to be like, oh, I've made it. I'm done, because it's just that it's an unrealistic thought. But the journey is what is important. That's what we're, even the low parts, right? Because we have to have the low parts to make the high parts feel like they should, I guess. But yeah, I think it's just really important to think about it that way. Like, keep pushing, let things roll off your back, but represent yourself with integrity.
Yes, and I think this, as somebody who's primarily doing YouTube, social media, thick skin is it's a requirement. Yeah, and I've done my fair share as well of deleting comments, specifically if they're hateful, aggressive,
Right,
inappropriate.
right.
It's like there's just no place for that in our community. Like, I'm not going to reward that by leaving it. And criticism, however, it's like, great, if you have a different opinion, please tell me what your opinion is. If you think that I could get a better sound, yes, let me know. If you think that there's something I could be doing better, let me know. I might disagree with you, and that's okay, but let me know. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm doing it the way I've been doing it for 30 years. So,
for sure, yeah.
It's just part of the deal. And I think especially as more people kind of I think I've used the word soiree twice in this, that's big for me. But as people who kind of take their soiree, right? But into social media, just know what you're getting into. Know that, and also, I'm not going to go down this path because it's another thing that I think you and I could talk about for a really long time, but be authentic. Don't edit your stuff. And what I mean by that is obviously edit it to the video and make sure it sounds good, but don't put out what you're playing. Don't put out videos where you're of if you can't play it, don't put it out. And
absolutely.
And I'm saying that because I've just seen too many people caught in that net of like, well, I couldn't play it, so I've moved my kick drums, or I moved my snare drum, or I quantized it. It's really easy to do it. Don't do it, because that's the immediate way to lose credibility. None of my videos are perfect. None of my videos have perfect drumming. There's missed hits. There's something, because I'm like, I just want to be authentic. This is where I was in that moment. I'm a human being. Like,
exactly.
I can sit in here for 10 hours and do it again, or I can just say, hey, you know what? This is 95%. Here you go. Because again, like, we're human beings. But like, that's a whole different conversation that I mean, that's like another hour. So we're a little bit over now. I have like 3 more segments, but they're really short. Okay. So if you can go a little bit over, I can, okay, perfect. Because I want to talk about, we've been sitting here talking about, artist relations and endorsements and all that stuff, but you have your own podcast, you have your own personal creative work that you have out there, the Sarah Hagan Backstage podcast. So what inspired you to start your own podcast and kind of, again, start to connect with folks and share your knowledge and share your, your advice? I've watched every episode. I love them. So what made you want to do what we're doing right now?
Yeah, well, so we were in the pandemic, of course, when a lot of podcasts started, but I had just been through the big layoff at Zildjian. I had just started my consulting company, and I was working with a few great brands at the time. And in that process of the pandemic and the changes going on in my life, I was having lots of conversations. Just my phone was ringing constantly, just with artists checking on me, people in the industry, and just catching up, because that's all we could do, because we couldn't see each other and everything was canceled, and it was very scary. So it was just really kind of like, I was having a lot of conversations that were very supportive, just like loving, supportive conversations with these people who I may have, like, in years past, we'd have great supportive conversations, but it was more about the gear, or we're doing this, or I'm super busy because I'm heading out on tour tomorrow, or I'm at the airport heading to China, and like, life is really, really busy. So when it slowed like that, And we had this chance to really talk to each other and kind of catch up and just like show our care for each other and cry together sometimes, it struck me that like these conversations that I was having, maybe other people would want to be part of it. And in the way where I could have a platform to interview my friends really and show the personal side of their lives. And yes, we'll talk about music and we'll talk about drumming and the things that they have going on. But we'll also just talk about like their life and them as people. And maybe we'll have like a candid conversation and capture it. And so that's really like where the idea came from. And I had a friend who was really great at editing. So I would like, film the episodes and then send them over and she would edit them and do just like such a great job, and pull clips for me and stuff because I was working those other contracts, for the consulting company. So even though I was home and I wasn't at Zildjian anymore, life was like really, really crazy busy. And I was also homeschooling, my 2 kids. So that was crazy. So yeah, it was a busy time, but I was like, for like an hour or 2 hours a week, I can dedicate to like, filming these episodes and putting them out. In the beginning, it was more like of a process. I think my first episode with Gavin Harrison, we put clips in there and we just really kind of like went all out with that. And then I realized it probably wasn't sustainable for like a weekly podcast. So, but I feel like it worked. Like we really just had these conversations that people enjoyed listening to. I didn't really do it I didn't do it to make any money from it. I didn't do it to like get followers or anything like that. It really was just about like bringing these people, like showing these drummers as people, right? And then also like talking about so they're musicians and they have these great careers, but like what's behind that? What is driving them? Like what are their passions? That's one of the questions I used to ask a lot was like, what other passions do you have? Like what else are you passionate about? And I would know from, just my friendships with them in a lot of cases, so I could bring up different things. But and then I actually got a chance to interview a few people that I didn't know all that well, which was really nerve-wracking. One of them was Dave Weckl. I had really just kind of spent some time with him before I did that interview with him, because he was a judge for a PAS event. And we got to spend a few days together and really like get to know each other in Indianapolis. And then I interviewed him, but I was like really nervous. But it was great. It was fun. And I was like, okay, maybe I can, kind of translate this to, some artists who I don't have like a super close, like 20-year friendship with. So, and then I took a break from the podcast, for work. And I've been thinking a lot about bringing it back just because it's been about a year and a half and I'm getting a lot of requests for more episodes and specific artists. And I'm just like, it was so much fun. I think maybe it's time to revisit it. And I'm home. I'm in my office, here at home. I, am working some contracts and, I feel like it's almost, I feel like it's kind of come back around, and that where I'm at a place in my life where I can really do that again. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, I, for one, vote yes.
Thank you.
Bring it back. I loved it.
So much.
And, very similar, obviously different podcasts, but very similar premise of like sharing the knowledge, sharing the education of these drummers. I've had some that are just influencers. I've had Gavin Harrison on as well. Gavin Harrison on as well. That's hard to say.
Yeah.
But but just sharing that information and showing that these are just people and the first question I ask every single person is, how did you get started? Because all of us got started somewhere. There's like 5 or 6 questions. The passion question may or may not be in there. But what I'll tell you is, when I started the podcast, where it came from was, So I came back right to music, and I started playing live again, started getting session gigs without the intention. Again, I came back just to do YouTube, just to share my passion, but play drums, have fun, and then the gigs came just because I wasn't seeking them, and they just came. And then I was like, oh, excuse my language, but oh shit, I can do this again. Okay.
Yeah.
And as I kind of came back, I started to realize that there's just a lot of, especially coming back as, my 30s and, after still doing it, but the corporate job and kind of learning some of those skills you could really only learn in that world. I was like, God, there's just a lot of skill sets, information, advice that drummers who want to be professional just aren't getting. You can, again, YouTube or Google how to do a paradiddle or how to learn rudiments, but you can't always get access to what to do in an audition or what are some things that I should be mindful of, just connecting. That's the biggest thing, because at its core, music is about expression and connection, in my opinion. And if we can do those two things, like, oh my gosh, what more can you ask for? So
Absolutely.
I'm going to get sappy and cry again. So I'm going to move into the speed round. Also, because I've been holding you hostage. So speed round. There are about 5 or 6 questions. These are just first things that come to your mind. What is the favorite venue that you've been backstage at? Could be overseas or United States.
Oh my gosh. I would say the Xfinity Center in Mansfield, Massachusetts. It's Great Woods, known as Great Woods, but it is the best. I love the people who work there. They're my friends. I spent probably 2 or 3 nights a week there through the summers, through my whole career, and it's so great. The catering area is awesome. It's a great place to see a show.
Awesome. Yeah, I've never been there, but now I have it on my list. Every time I ask anybody on the channel what their favorite venue is or whatever, I always write it down. So I'm like, okay, now I need to go check it out. And this is going to be hard, so you can say more if you want, but who is the most inspiring drummer you've ever watched perform live?
Oh my gosh. Okay. From a just love of the music perspective, Danny Carey's my favorite drummer, because I'm obsessed with the music, and he's just so incredibly talented and versatile, and unique. Like, there's no one else who plays like that. Can't name another artist who plays like that, right? And I always felt safe saying Danny Carey, because he is not a Zildjian artist, and I felt like I was not upsetting all of my friends by going off the reservation. But the most inspiring drummer, as far as making me want to sit down at a kit and play, Steve Gadd for sure. He plays in the most relatable way. He's so talented and also unique in his style of playing. No one sounds like Steve Gadd, right? But you watch him play and you feel like I can do that. I can sit down and try that and maybe be semi-successful at it. And so many drummers blow me away with their talent. I did clinic tours with Gavin Harrison and Marco Miniman over the years, and I would watch them every night and just be in awe of their playing, and realize that that was something that I can appreciate, but I could never replicate, right? And then, watching someone like Steve and having that feeling of oh my gosh, I want to sit down and feel like him, right? I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but yeah. So I know I named more than one, but there you go.
No, I think I kind of had a feeling. It's like asking any favorite drummer question. It's there's never one. But
right. It's tough.
I think
it's tough.
I think arguably Danny Carey is a very good and safe answer. I think every drummer, unless they're, and again, come at me internet if you want, but unless they're a hater of skill, Danny Carey is going to be in everybody's top, list. I'll just share anecdotally, Joey Jordison was kind of my segue into trying to do this professionally. So
Yeah.
I was 8 or 9 years old, got the Slipknot CD, and I'm like, I'm doing this. And I got to see him once before he passed, which again, rest in peace. His anniversary of his passing just passed. So rest in peace to Joey.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to bring this thing full circle with coffee. So obviously all this got started with you serving coffee, but what is your go-to coffee order either on tour or at the trade shows when we're all there hanging out with each other?
Yes, my go-to coffee order is the brown sugar oat milk shaken espresso from Starbucks. That's the thing. Because it's not like super sweet. But like I can't drink black coffee. I can't do it. And it's also not super unhealthy. You know what I mean? Like some of the coffees are real sugary and all of that. And this one I think is, fairly healthy coffee. So that's
And not the ones that are like this much coffee and then like whipped cream and sugar and all the drizzles.
I can't do whipped cream on anything. Like can't do it. But yeah, super sugary syrupy coffees, not at all. But I'm not quite to the like, black cold brew level. So that shaken espresso is my go-to. But at home I drink cold brew with like oat milk creamer, like non-sugary, just to like have it not be black cold brew. Someday you'll ask me in a few years and I'll be like, I've made it to the black cold brew phase, but not yet.
Yeah, just slowly on the spectrum going down to just, like the worst, just like I'm just chewing on the beans now.
Right, yes, I just chew raw beans. That's it. That's how I get my...
I don't know if I'm pleased to share or not, but black coffee guy. Don't get me wrong. I like adding stuff to it. I just, for me, it's like speed and ease. I'm like, just give it to me black. I'll just drink it and move on. But what I can't do cold brew. It's just, I can't do cold brew black. I have to put something in it.
Right.
It's just too much. It's too bitter for me. But what's one thing people don't know about you, but they should know about it? They should know it.
Oh my gosh, that's a tough one. But they should know. No, I feel like I'm a pretty open book. Hmm. I maybe that I don't know, maybe like you were saying, like on the verge of tears, maybe that I'm like more sensitive than I let on. I guess maybe that's something people should know. That I put myself out there. I think I'm pretty like logical and even keeled, and I'm always like the person in the crowd who's just like, it'll be fine, everything's good, everything's like just stay calm, go with the flow. But yeah, I think maybe things affect me more than I put out there. So yeah, that's probably one thing.
Maybe I'm overstepping here, but I kind of felt like we were both getting a little bit emotional on a couple of those different topics, and I think it's when you're truly passionate about something, it's like you can't help it, like you just feel it. You're like, oh, I'm gonna explode. So I know exactly what you mean. All right, I have two more questions.
Okay.
I promise we're wrapping up. I promise.
No worries.
I am stealing one of your questions, though. Like I mentioned, it may or may not be on here, but what is a passion of yours outside of music, outside of drums, that maybe people don't know about, or maybe they do, but you just want to make sure we share it on here?
Yeah. So I'm very much into fitness. That's one of my big things. I ran a marathon a few years back, and I don't think I'll do that again. And it was really just the amount of time that it took to train. I felt like in my life, I don't have that much time to dedicate, but I'm glad that I did it. It was one of those things where I was not a runner. And I was like, you know what? I need to push myself to do something that's hard for me and is outside of my comfort zone, like we talked about earlier. So I did. I was like, I'm going to do it. But I like daily workouts for sure. Like that's something that I need to like just feel good for the day. Like it's just really super, super important. And healthy eating, that's another thing I just am very much into, making sure that I'm a vegetarian, so I need to make sure I get the right nutrients, the right amount of protein a day. So yeah, so that's something that's super important. And along with that, probably like the activities, physical activities I like, hiking, being outside, gardening, all those things. But really probably the thing people don't, or a lot of people don't know, is that my kids are like my number one passion, priority, like everything to me. They are awesome human beings, just like so cool. I don't even know how I created such cool humans, but they're they're awesome. And my daughter is playing music now. She's singing and playing bass and guitar and drums and just like blowing me away. Piano, like completely self-taught with all the instruments. Even drums, which she wants to like figure out on her own. So I'm like, okay, like, she'll ask me when she gets stuck on something or when she needs some help, but she's blowing me away. So and then my son is super into engineering and just building everything and creating. So yeah, they're really like my life, my main priority. And it's very much separate from my music life, but is definitely they're my top priority for sure.
See, now I'm getting emotional again.
Yeah.
But one, congratulations on the marathon. That's incredible. That's a feat on its own. Of course. Guilty as charged, fitness addict over here. So I'm with you on that. Like, every day I'm doing something physical just to kind of, again, it gets your mind in the right spot of like, I can achieve whatever I want to achieve. And I'm investing back in my body and my health.
Yes.
But then, I have my daughter, she's turning 13 this year. I have a picture of her right here. I keep it right here every time because I remember, that's my North Star. But same thing, like, I might be back here screaming and playing double bass, but right after that, I'm helping her get her binders ready for school. She goes back to school on Thursday, So we do it for them, and not to get sappy, but you created incredible human beings because you're an incredible human being. And I think that we pass the best parts of us to our children. Sometimes not the best parts, but we pass the best parts of us to our children. And to see them flourish into their own human beings, whether it's the same interests or the same paths that we went down or brand new ones, they still take the best parts of us and invest that in those interests. And so just awesome to hear all the stuff going on with your kids.
Thank you.
Of course. Last question, because I realize I'm just taking all of your time. This one's important to me because, you are very, I think, maybe this is overstepping too, but I feel like you're very humble. I feel like you maybe don't appreciate or recognize the impact you've had in our industry. And everybody who knows you loves you. Everybody who's spent time with you is excited to see you when we see you, wants to talk to you, catch up with you, because you're genuinely a good person and you're a good partner. See, now I'm getting emotional. But
now making me tear up too.
But it's true. When I mentioned that we were sitting down, everybody's like, "Oh my God, I love Sarah," and it's because you are genuinely there for everyone. You support us. You hold us accountable. I saw you, like I said, in Nashville, and I was like, I don't want to be a weirdo because it's been 5 years, but I'm going to give you a big hug because like you've stayed with me that long. And so the last question I have for you is, forget everything I just said, but what do you hope that your legacy is within our industry? Like, what do you want to leave behind?
Oh my goodness. Oh, this is so, yeah, I don't want to get too emotional about it, but you already started me on that path. Yeah, I guess just like pretty much being someone in the industry who was a catalyst for others. I think really, like, I recognized at a young age that I wasn't, like, the touring musician life really wasn't for me. I definitely wanted to have kids. I wanted to be there for them. And I I knew that like being on the road for months at a time really wasn't going to be like what was in my future. But interning at Zildjian and recognizing that I could be part of this industry that I love so much in a completely different way was the biggest blessing. I was like, this is like what I never knew existed. I didn't really think about that there were these jobs on the periphery of musicians, right? That like that I could make my career. And so I think probably just thinking, like, I hope people think of me as someone who was a catalyst in their career or was their support system, or, you know, help them find the sound that they were looking for, help them connect with someone who ended up furthering their career in some way. And, um, you know, that's like, I'm happy being in that spot. And I will take all the hugs. I love the hugs. Again, I love people. The experiences of getting to connect with people in person. You know, COVID was devastating, thinking like, is this ever going to come back? Because I can't not see my people, you know? But yeah, so yeah, I guess that's what I hope for, that people just see me as like a positive influence on their music career.
Well, I'll say that's achieved in spades. I mean, again, everybody I've ever talked to that knows you, has worked with you, has spent any time with you, absolutely feels that way. But more than that, because again, that goes back to like a little bit of the transaction, right? Of like, you do this because you care. You do this because you love the industry. You love the people that you connect with. You know, obviously, a way to show that is to help catalyst or be the catalyst for those careers. But to me, like the thing that I've appreciated about you the most, and I'm sure I'm speaking for other people, but hopefully they agree, is just how genuine you are about that investment. Of course, like, you know, we talked a lot about, from a business perspective, return on investment, value proposition, all the fun buzzwords that anybody who went to business school can share. But like, obviously you have that because you have the business experience, you have the perspective, but I've only ever felt, seen, experienced from you a genuine love, care, and intentionality of helping people, right? Just take drummers out of it, just helping people achieve their dreams, whether it's your daughter who's clearly a multi-instrumentalist who's going to go off and be this incredible, like the future Dave Grohl, or you have your son who's going to re-engineer all of this stuff and hopefully help us, you know, move into a different, let's just call it, different era of our world. Or just, again, the fact that you're helping so many people pursue a dream, right? It's on them to get there, but the fact that you're giving them a path or encouragement. Again, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now had we not talked 5 years ago. There is of course, there is always a chance that people will quit and they'll, you know, go down the path of least resistance or whatever it is. But your words have stayed as a motivation for me. And I know that's true for, I mean, countless other drummers. And I'll just say, I might be cheesy at the end of this and like put up pictures from Music City Drum Show of everybody who stopped to take a picture with you because they care about you so much.
Thank you.
It's just important to me. And this is going to sound a little selfish, but like, going into this call, I was like, obviously I want to have Sarah on the podcast. I'm like, who can provide a better perspective into the business side of the industry, but then also the connection side, but then also selfishly, I was like, I want her as my friend because you have shaped my career. You know, it's in the early stages, but you've shaped my career in more ways than I can even express. And so I'm going to get off my sappy soapbox and just say thank you for everything you've done for all of us, because I can honestly say there's a lot of us that wouldn't be where we're at without having you in our lives to help guide us, you know, on the paths that we're on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for telling me that, and thank you for having me on today. And we're friends now, so that's it. Yay.
That was my only goal. It's just, okay. Yeah, I'm like, in fact, I haven't been recording this whole time. I'm just kidding, but but that's awesome. So I've already held you like almost 2 hours. So what I'm going to say is just thank you. But in the short term, I'll make sure to stay in contact with you. And I just have to, again, say thank you. You making the time to be on this is going to help so many other people as well. But again, selfishly, I appreciate having you and having the time and being able to just connect like this. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate you too.
All right, I'll let you get back to the mastermind kids you have at home, and
Thank you.
I know they got a lot going on, so thank you, and I will talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right, bye, Sarah.